Okay, so 80,000 US citizens searched for Canadian homes in a single week. And no, I'm not making a mistake in my numbers. I know in my previous video I said 22% and it was actually 2%. That's my bad. But this time it's actually 80,000. But Royal LePage actually found the pattern. They line up perfectly every time the Taco Tuesday guy threatens something, like threatening to obliterate Iran, or major incidents within the United States, like the killing of Renee Good or Alex Preddy. Every time something happens, that's when the US citizens head to rew.ca and start looking for property. We already know there are thousands of US citizens searching for their ancestors to see if there's any links to Canada. So it's coming whether we like it or not. But the biggest question is, do we want them coming to Canada? Or better yet, is Canada ready for the influx? I don't have the answers to these questions, but I just want to bring this to everyone's attention. Also, in this video, I'm going to show the biggest Canada flag ever made in history, and it's sitting on Grouse Mountain right now. And it's also a video from my home, so I wanted to play it anyways. But let's get started first with the report that discusses the increase in searches from US citizens.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So the report says at one point, U.S. traffic to your website rose 78% week over week, 65% year over year. To what do you attribute that?
Well, it's really interesting. We've actually been able to pinpoint from one week to the next sort of where political events in the US have correlated with those spikes. So just to give you sort of an indication of what those numbers mean, on an average week, we'll see anywhere from 10 to 15,000 US visitors to royallepage.ca. And since the beginning of this year, we've seen trends where week after week, we're seeing over 20 or 30,000 visitors. And just a couple of weeks ago, we reached close to 80,000.
Now, 80,000 in the grand scheme of things is still a small amount. And I'm going to guess that a portion of that is just people window shopping. But couple this along with the fact that we know US citizens are searching for their bloodlines in Canada. So regardless, there is going to be a migration north. We just don't know how small or big it's going to be yet. But how do I actually feel about this? And on one hand, I'm happy for those that have the opportunity to come to Canada. But on the other hand, I do wonder if it's going to be abused. I'll go more into this towards the end of this segment.
So we can pinpoint those spikes to specific events, for example, the death of Renee Good. And then again, when President Trump posted on social media that he was essentially launching a war on Iran and threatened to obliterate an entire population. These are sort of points in history where we're able to see massive spikes when you sort of plot out those points on a graph.
Now, I want to clarify on what I just said earlier and about people maybe abusing the system. And I don't want to sound like I'm insensitive or anything like that. But there have been some in the GTL community who have emailed me saying that they want out of the United States. They don't recognize their country anymore, and they feel like their lives are in danger. They could be a person of color and easily profiled, or they could be part of like the LGBTQ community, or they could be part of a religious group or community that doesn't align with the current US administration. So depending on whatever kind of incident happens in the United States, these spikes might be from different groups of people. And for those GTL members that have actually emailed me and told me their story, I totally understand and I support them migrating to Canada. But on the other hand, there are US citizens that want to migrate to Canada for the wrong reasons. And for them, I don't support it. I'll talk about that more later.
Interesting. So where are people looking? Can you break it down region by region? Are some provinces or cities more popular than others?
Yeah, it's actually a trend we're seeing right across the country. And very recently, we surveyed our own Royal LePage agents, so realtors that are working on the ground with clients right across the nation. And a full 30% of them have actually told us that they've seen a significant increase in interest from American buyers over the last year. This doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are going to translate into purchases, but it certainly does give us an indication of where they're at and sort of how they're feeling about the current situation.
And we're not talking just cottages here or farms. We're talking residential homes, condos.
Absolutely.
So they're not looking for vacation homes or cottages. They're looking to, how do they say it? Get out of Dodge. But a question I have, and I know some of you are probably thinking this as well. What's going to happen to the housing prices in Canada? Are they going to go up? Is it going to become more unaffordable than it actually is right now? I don't have the answers to these questions. I'm not a real estate agent or an economist or good in economics. I'm just asking questions that I'm sure the rest of the community are asking as well.
So can you tell if these visits to the website are translating into actual sales, Annalise?
It's such a good question. Certainly, buying a home is not the first step in the immigration process, and we know that our government has materially decreased the number of entrants that are coming into the country over the last couple of years. But StatsCan has reported a significant increase in Americans applying for citizenship since the start of 2026.
You know, sometimes you got to sit back and actually realize what's going on. The United States has always had this belief that everybody around the world just wants to be like them. They want to move to the United States. They want to be a US citizen. I mean, just take a look at this clip right here. It happened early last year before Taco Tuesday took office.
I get it. You say that Americans don't have a problem with Canadians, and we don't. But it seems like you have a problem with us. Because if I were a citizen of another country and I was a neighbor of the United States, I would consider it a privilege to be taken over by the United States of America. That's what everybody else in the world wants. American citizenship. For some reason, that's repellent to you Canadians. And I find that personally offensive, Premier.
Yeah, these are some of our neighbors who actually thinks it's a privilege to be taken over by the United States. But I do find it ironic now that the quote-unquote greatest country in the world, the country that everybody wants to go to, is now having an influx of its own citizens wanting to leave the country. They have a brain drain going on, where their medical professionals are now leaving their country. And now it's labeled a country that nobody wants anything to do with anymore. I just find it ironic on how fast things have turned.
After they expanded the eligibility of citizenship by descent, they've seen a real increase in interest from Americans looking to become Canadian. And we know that our country has always been appealing to them. We have, a healthcare system and an education system that is, very attractive. We speak the same language.
And when we hear a loud bang, we don't automatically think gunfire. Just saying.
Geographically, it's very close. So I think we're a country that seems very accessible to Americans. Likely this searching for properties is an indication of how they're feeling. It's an emotional reaction to what's going on in their own country. Chances are a small percentage of them will actually translate into home sales. But nonetheless, it really does give us an idea of how they're feeling right now.
Yeah, a window into their mindset. Thank you so much.
Now, I can't really predict how many people are going to be migrating to Canada. I don't think it's going to be like millions or 500,000 people moving over. I mean, it is a costly process. But the biggest question I have is, what kind of US citizen do we want coming over to Canada?
What kind of American are you?
That's a clip from a movie called Civil War. I think it came out in 2024. Should check it out. But like I said earlier, there are going to be US citizens that have their reasons for wanting to flee. They may be a minority, or they may be in communities that are targets of this current administration. For these US citizens, I understand their circumstances, and I support them. But I have seen comments in other people's videos, not my videos, I think the GTL community is all on the same page. But in other creators' videos, I have seen US citizens saying that they want Canadian citizenship, and the reason is to be able to jump back and forth depending on what president is in the office. And for me, this doesn't sit well with me. Why? Because I don't want Canada to be a backup plan, or to be used at your convenience. Or when times get tough in the United States, you flee, and then when things get better, you head back. Now, just to clarify, I know the GTL community has lots of dual citizens, Canadian and US, and I'm not targeting you or saying this is you at all. So please don't take offense to this. But I do have to mention this because there are US citizens that want to become Canadians, not for the right reason. And personally, I don't want Canada to be their backup plan or their pit stop. So let me know in the comments below how you feel about this topic and whether you agree with me or even disagree with me. Now, moving on to a lighter note, and I want to have a little bit more positive notes in my videos. Canada's largest ever made flag is now sitting on Grouse Mountain. Now, even though they made the flag and it's up on Grouse Mountain for FIFA World Cup, which I don't like, I still think it's pretty cool that they made this flag. If you haven't been to Vancouver, Grouse Mountain is in North Vancouver. And if you're anywhere in the Lower Mainland, whether it's Vancouver, Richmond, Burnaby, Coquitlam, and even parts of Surrey, you should be able to see this flag. And I'm actually going to put out a request to my fellow Vancouverites to see if anybody can send me a photo of this. If those in the 604 are able to send me a photo of Grouse Mountain without it being too pixelated, I would love to use it as a backdrop for a future video. So if you're able to take a photo, send it to me by email. Okay, let's get started on this report from CBC.
Okay, so Troy, I can see that massive flag behind you. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, Jess, this is some serious investigative work going on here. We're at the bottom of the cut. Yesterday, everyone was all in an uproar. What is going on Grouse Mountain? Is that a giant flag? We're here. We can confirm That is a giant Canadian flag on the cut at Grouse Mountain, almost the size of 2 football fields. The flag weighs 3,000 pounds. They say that they put it in here with the World Cup coming to town. They want everyone to feel that Canadian.
For selfish reasons, I'm just pausing here to take a look at the view. I miss home. And for any tourists thinking about visiting Vancouver, you're going to want to go to Grouse Mountain.
Pride, that patriotism. I was riding my bike around the seawall yesterday and it catches your eye. You can see it from all across Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, Burnaby, and we're here today. They're actually getting a Guinness World Record. They're about to have the ceremony. They're going to get the Guinness World Record for the largest flag ever displayed on a mountain. And it is 3 times larger than the previous record holder, which was in Mongolia. So a lot of fun stuff going on here at Grouse with this giant Canadian flag.
I'm sure that a lot went into installing this huge flag and a lot of manpower, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't know, and I think a lot of people didn't know when this got installed because it kind of just showed up yesterday. I wasn't sure if they did it, in the dead of night, but they set it up yesterday. It took about 2 hours with 70 people were here. And the thing about this flag, for it to meet the Guinness World Record standard, it has to be one continuous piece of flag. So this is one giant unfurled flag, 160 by 80 meters. The other cool note, aside from the Guinness World Record, this is the largest Canadian flag ever produced in the history of the country, largest Canadian flag. The old record was actually unfurled in Stanley Park in 2019. This is now the largest Canadian flag ever made, and it's right here on the cut at Grouse, and they're thinking it'll be up until the middle of July, around when the World Cup will be wrapping up.
I'm kind of sad I'm not going to be able to see it. I mean, I'm still planning to come home in the fall. But that would also make an amazing photo for anyone flying into YVR. I know this report isn't providing much information, but I did want to provide something from home. And about a dozen of you sent it to me, so I figured why not? So for those of you living in Vancouver, and if you have time to take a photo, hopefully not too pixelated, send it over to me by email. To close off this video, I would like to thank This Is Me-CJ from our Discord server for taking this photo of the Broadway Bridge in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm definitely hoping to see more photos from the Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and even the territories. So if anyone has any photos, please post them on my socials or else send me an email. But thank you again, CJ, for posting this and sharing it with the community. Alright everyone, I gotta get going. I think the co-host wants to get fed. I haven't fed her yet. If you found any value in anything I said today, or you want to hear more from a Canadian or international point of view, without the US media bias, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. That way you'll be notified of my future videos. And don't forget to hit the bell icon and select all as well. Now if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are going to show up on your screen shortly. Thanks everyone, I'll catch you in the next one.